Hello. Okay, so for today, we're going to work on the rest of our website a little later. And before that, we're just going to do some review of hooks and just whatever review you guys need or want. So hooks are functions. They're functions built into React that allow you to hook into React state and life cycle features from functional components. So we've seen how class components have access to state, just raw state as it is. And it also has like the component did mount, component will update and stuff like that. So these hooks just allow us to do the same thing from a functional component and makes it a little bit easier to do functionality with your website. So one of the main hooks that we will see is use state. We've used it before, and it's a hook that allows you to give a component mutable state. Am I sharing my screen, by the way?
No.
That'll help. There we go. Okay. So I just have some notes here. So yeah, use state allows you to give a component mutable state variables that can be used throughout that component's life. So you need a variable that can track something, and use state will provide you with that variable and also a method to update that variable. So the syntax, as we've seen before, when we want to do use state, use state as a function, and it takes in an initial value of what you want your state to be. So if I wanted to initialize an object, let's say, and this object was going to hold, I don't know, user information. So I can say this initial object will have first name, something, I don't know, and then last name. I forget these sometimes. Okay. This is a very unfortunate name for someone. So what this use state will do when you send it in this object is give you back two things. It will give you back, we can set it as constant. It will give you back two things in an array. The first thing is the object itself. So it's an instance of that object. And that is what you can use throughout your program. So I'm going to call it user and a function to be able to update that user. And I will say set user. So this is always going to be the syntax for use state. And if you want a different state, you just do the same thing and have different values, and you can initialize it with 0, or like you can initialize it with anything you want. You can have it be an array, an object, a literal, like a number, a string, whatever. Or maybe if I wanted count and set count. Okay. So that's the syntax for use state. Anyone have any questions or comments on this? No. Okay. So use effect is our next one. We've also seen this in effect. So the effect hook adds the ability to perform side effects from a function. So it serves the same purpose as, like I said, component did mount, component did update, and component will unmount in React classes, but unified into a single API. So instead of having all three of these, you can have just the use effect, and that allows you to hook into these different effects in the component lifecycle. So the syntax for this is, so use effect is a function as well. It doesn't return for you, it doesn't return anything, so you're not setting a variable equal to it. It's just the hook itself. And it can take two variables. You could also just send in one. So if you send in one function, so this is a function, actually I'm not going to call it function because that's an actual term in JavaScript. But it takes in a function, which I could actually just represent with an arrow function. And this function will run every single time the component re-renders. So this one will run every time component renders. So a component will re-render if a state changes or a prop changes or anything else, because we didn't specify anything here. So if anything in that component changes at all, then this will run. Another variation of this is where we send in an empty array. This will tell it to run on mount. So this will run only once.
Yeah, that's a
And-
really key distinction. I always forget the empty array. And then I'm like, why is my component constantly re-rendering?
Yeah, and one thing to look out with this, if you don't put anything here with this function, and let's say inside this function you have an API call, it's just going to keep looping and looping, because you most likely will have let's say an API call and then a set state. So you're probably gonna use that data to set some sort of state or something like that. And this will trigger the calling of the use effect again because something happened. And set state, yeah, so this will trigger it again. I'll just say, watch out this. Will cause infinite loop. And if you have a limit on your API, that's not good, because you will reach that limit very quickly. Okay. Oh, sorry, Adam, did you have something to say?
No, I'm sorry. I was just reaching over to type in Slack.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Can you explain that one more time, Zainab? Sorry.
This one here?
Yeah, just about what you mean with the set state will trigger an infinite loop.
So over here. So this version of use effect will run every time a component re-renders. Renders or re-renders. So what this means is this will be called, this function in here will be called every time anything changes in our app. If a component changes, if a state changes, if a prop changes, this will be called. So this is equivalent to component will update, yeah, component did update. So
You mean because there's not the array or the conditional thing at the end?
exactly. So we didn't give it a condition. So this means that whenever anything happens to it, whether it's a a set state or like anything in the component that changes, or even a prop that changes from a higher up component, from a parent component, this component will re-render, this use state will get called one more time. And so this behavior will be very bad if you have some code in here that is setting your state, because you will be in an infinite loop, because something, so on first mount, this is triggered because the component has rendered. So this has been triggered. This function, oops, this function gets called, and inside this function, you're setting the state, which then causes the component to re-render, which then calls this use effect again. And so it updates, it gets called, it gets updated. So it just keeps going in the loop. And so the way to get around that, if you want something to only happen on mount, you have to put the second variable. And I would say try not to do this with that. Like, try not to forget this, because it's not, it could be very bad depending on what you have inside here. If you just have a console log, that's fine. But like I said, if you have an API call or whatever that's setting your state, you'll end up in an infinite loop.
I thought it would change on update as well, because like in our examples, we were putting like article inside the array. And so you had explained it as like anytime that article changed, then we would use the effect.
Yeah, so I'm gonna talk about this in a sec. So this one will run on mount. If you put a variable here, some sort of state variable, this will get called whenever this state variable gets updated. This one gets called whenever anything gets updated, regardless if you're if you're setting it in here or whatever. So this could also cause an infinite loop if you're updating the state inside of here, this specific state. So usually what you're updating in here, you're going to want to have a different state that you're tracking to trigger this use effect. So in here you could set, instead of state, you're setting different state. And this will be fine. So if you set a different state, it's not going to trigger this to be called again, unless the state, let's just call this state one or state instance or something. Yeah. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so any other questions actually before I continue with this? Okay. So like I was saying, this runs once, but there is a different way of doing this. Not a different way, but if you have a return in here, this return will run on mount. And it won't run once because it will run on mount and then unmount, but whatever is in here will only get called on unmount. So we'll run on mount and unmount. Whatever's in here will only get called on unmount. Or will only get run, or will only run. That's yeah.
Yeah, I was
on
about to say, I think we have to return a function there.
Oh, function, okay. Inside, like, do I keep parentheses and then the function? I
It,
forgot this in.
oh yeah, no, it's confusing as heck. We can just do an arrow function without the parentheses.
Okay,
I believe that will work. Yeah, I'm looking at the use effect docs, and that is a more subtle one.
Mhm.
Am I right in thinking that kind of like the most common use case is on line 35?
yeah, I feel like line 35 and this
Oh, yeah,
one.
totally.
So, so it will run on update of state instance. So doing this won't cause re-render. Infinite loop. Yeah, Justin.
In the notes, I think from Monday,
Mhm.
it mentioned that in the use effect circumstance for updating, that last one,
Mhm.
there was a reference to a first render equals use ref true. Do you recall that?
Mhm.
What does the use ref true do? It sounds to me like that was kind of like some sort of initial mounting state for the very
Yeah,
first mount kind of
that's
thing.
yeah,
Is that
that was
necessary at all?
no, it's not.
Okay, okay.
That's only if you want to have specific behavior that happens on first mount and not on the updates. And if you want like specific ones, and yeah, you want to specify that. So if we had this one and then this one, this will run on mount also. So on mount and update.
Okay,
So if you
So it's
wanted to
not-
specify only on update to do something, you can track like a separate variable saying this was the first mount or not. That was just
Sure.
yeah.
so kind of like a circumstance where you would have a state where upon the initial mount, you'd call an API to load it. And then anytime it updates after that, then you'd have an update kind of effect happen.
Yeah. So if you didn't
Okay.
want to, if you didn't want to do the same exact thing that you did on mount
Yeah, okay.
in the update one, yeah, that's like you can separate them that
Okay.
way. Yeah.
Got
Any other questions? Is the distinction kind of getting a little clearer? I'm actually going to put these comments above. I feel like this will make it a little more legible. Is anyone still, is this causing still any confusion? Is there anything that I can clear up for anyone? Yeah, Michael.
So for that first one, do you mind just adding a comment saying like, don't do this?
Like this here, right?
Yeah, that one that would trigger an infinite loop?
I wanna,
Yeah, or
I'm just gonna say,
I would say you probably don't want to do this.
yeah,
That's often how I'll make stuff like that, because there's definitely some case where that's what we want to do. Like, there's a reason why the behavior is there. But most of the time, yeah, that's not what we want, and that's a really good call. Also, I want to mention, I think we've like mentioned this briefly. React will render a component before it calls the code in the use effect hook. And most of the time, that's not an issue. Every now and then, that can cause, and most of the time, honestly, if we just like the component renders and it's initially empty and then the use effect hook fires off when we get our data and it renders, that's fine. But every now and then a situation pops up where that is an issue. And I just wanted to mention that because I know that's a gotcha that's gotten me. And I don't want to add like too much complexity there. But I believe that's the behavior of the use effect hook.
Have you all ever seen that first use of use effect like used in like a production at all, like on a project?
I have not.
I have not. I also was not working with hooks when I was last working like with React in a work environment.
Yeah. Same.
Yeah, it might be like if we had to track mouse movements and like constantly send like mouse movements to a server somewhere or something like that, maybe that's where you would use it. I'm kind of trying to come up with something, but it definitely like it probably would be in a component whose job is not to render much or anything to the screen, or at least something that like not isn't going to change every time that use effect hook gets called.
Cool.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Any other questions?
Yeah, for the unmount option, does the return function, is that the only thing that runs on unmount, or does it run the function, the first function as well?
It only runs whatever's inside the return. So you could have these two be one. So if you have these square brackets, so stuff in here will run on mount, and stuff in here will only run on mount. So yeah, you can use these two in the same one.
And so if you want the same thing to run on mount on every time, and then on unmount, you would just have to use the same function in the return.
Yes.
Okay. And you showed us the other day if you wanted to run on update, but not on mount, you showed us a way to do that. Can you show that again?
Yeah, so that was what we were talking about with that variable. So if you wanted to, I should actually be doing this in actual code so we can test it out and stuff like that. I have my app open, so let's. Okay. Just gonna copy this one over. So for that one, you would need some variable that holds your like if this is the first mount or not. So you could do they recommend using useref. So it's one of the React. Oh. And useRef allows you to use a state-like object or state-like variable that does not trigger any updates. So that way you can set it and it doesn't mess up with your rendering if you want, which is beneficial when you're doing this, because when you're doing stuff that you want to where you're tracking the rendering and you're tracking the updates and you don't want extra behavior. So let's just call it first render equals useRef. And so useRef returns a mutable reference object whose .current property is initialized to the past argument in here. So inside here, we just send in an initial value, and I want to say true because it should be the first render when it is true. And so here we would have to do two use effects. One that will happen on first mount and one that will happen on update. So I'll create a state so that way we can do it on update of that state. So constant actually forgot my syntax. So update and then comma set should I update, and then use state. We'll just say false for now. This could be anything. It doesn't have to be a true or false, because as long as we change it, it will just trigger. So it could be counter, it could be whatever we want. So we can have here. What am I gonna put? So here I'll do I update, and then this one is going to be our first render. So this will also get called on first render because should I update wasn't anything and then it became something when we created it. So this will get called on first render. So we have first render. So if not our first render, then we want to do console log of did I update has been updated. And yeah, that's it for this one. For this one, this is going to be our first render. So we can just do a console log.
I have a quick question, Zainab, once you finish that line of code.
Yeah. And then I could say first render. So actually, first render, we have to access it through like it was saying here. The actual value is in .current, so we have to use that. And then
Oh, good catch.
.current. I think this is how I can set it equals true. Or sorry, it's false now because it's not our first render anymore. And then I want to call this. So the issue with this, if I have this one first, is it's going to set render, or sorry, first render to false, and then immediately call this one because it'll set it to false, and then this will be like, okay, it's false. So now I can do a console log, but it would still be in the first render and it's not in the second or on update. So we will have to put this one above this one. So here it checks first if it's a first render, which it shouldn't, and then we do this. Adam, what was your?
Oh yeah, I was just gonna ask on line 76.
Mhm.
Is that console log? Is that, oh, okay, it's indicating that should I updates changed, and that's also where we would put whatever code we want to have fire for our effect, right?
Exactly. So based on our state updating.
Got it.
And then
Cool.
here we can put other
Yeah,
code.
I just wanted to check in on clarify that.
Mhm.
And I just want to mention too to the class, like handling the first render of a React app or a React component, like, is surprisingly tricky when there are like differences in what needs to happen then versus other times. Because this definitely is getting to be more complex logic, and that's often the case. Like a lot of the times, luckily, like we don't have to worry about it too much, and we can let React handle it. And if a component renders twice, it's really not that big a deal. Then for certain cases it is, and it gets a little trickier. So it's I just wanted to share that. Like this is a common sticking point when writing React code, I think.
Yeah, Alicia.
So you would only do that, so that is like the way to set something up if you want to do something different on first mount. And then you also wanted to update on update, but it's something different that you want to do on
Exactly.
update.
Exactly. So if you wanted to do this stuff in here, every time this thing updated, but not on your first mount, because this will get triggered on first mount because the should update was just set. So technically it did update.
Okay, and then another follow-on question is, if you only ever wanted something to do it on first mount, that was essentially, that's just 83 through 86.
Exactly.
Okay, and then you wouldn't need the first render thing because, okay, and then second question is, why do you use line 71 instead of just another state that's just set to true?
Because we might get some extra side effects. So if I set this to true, it will cause a re-render on the component, which I guess we don't have a use effect that is tracking that.
I meant like why couldn't you just do like a state like 72 initiate with true and then never update it?
Because I want to update it. Sorry, yeah, Adam, you can.
I want it, yeah. One reason to use a ref there instead of state for line 71 with the first render. And I think this is a tricky point. I was just reading the docs about a ref. One of the behaviors of a ref is that when it changes, the component does not re-render itself. While with React state, when our state changes, the component will check, do I have to re-render anything? And because we're using this ref just to track when a component mounts and the first time that it renders, we don't really want any sort of behavior. We don't want, like when we change that ref, we don't want to like have the component re-render again or anything like that. Did that make sense?
Yeah, I think so.
So we can test it out without this, so we can do,
And I also just wanted to briefly mention, I believe I have this correct. So, I think we were, like, I think you were mentioning first mount, Alicia, and I think I was saying that as well. And I think what we want to say there is first render. With a React component's lifecycle, the component gets mounted on the DOM once and then gets rendered multiple, as many times as it needs to, depending on what's happening. But like, it's not going to like get mounted once and twice again. Like, if like the component might get unmounted if like we navigate to a different page or it's not there at all anymore. But then it would get mounted again and start fresh and then render and re-render. So we like first render, second render, third render makes sense, but like first mount, second mount doesn't. And I know that's a little nitpicky, but also especially as we're starting to get into like the React component lifecycle and stuff, the terms do start to have more relevance and stuff. So I just wanted to mention that.
thank you. So I did create a first render state. Which don't know why it's not. That will, yep. There we go. Okay, so to recap, we have this use effect that will call on first render, and we'll log this, and then we'll set our first render to false.
Yeah, and actually I want to mention, like Alicia, your question about why do we use a ref on line 86 when we set first render false. Oh, wait, no, I take it back. I'm confused. I apologize, Zainab. Never mind. I
You're
got
fine.
confused.
No, you're fine. Okay, so yeah, we're not gonna, we won't use the use ref, and we'll see. It shouldn't really do anything. It's just an in case it gives extra side effects. Okay, so
Oh,
Where
line
was I?
85, there's a typo.
85.
Or actually, it,
Yeah, I just spelled it wrong twice. Or no, I had copied it. I spelled it wrong the first time and copied
I've
it.
done that many times.
Yeah. Okay, so this use effect will call on first render. It'll set our first render to false. And this use effect will only call this console log on update of the should I update variable or state. And here I just did a button where on click, it just switches, it just changes the should I update to something else. So I could, yeah, so I just flipped it. That way every time we click, we can see something. I think I'm in my, yeah, okay. Oops. So this actually isn't asking me a question, it's more rhetorical. I don't see it. Okay. I'm gonna just do an npm install real quick in case.
So also I've noticed, when are you supposed to run npm install? It seems like anytime I open my React thing, I have to do it, even if it's already something that a project I started.
You shouldn't have to.
If you have cloned a project from GitHub, you will probably want to. So npm install looks at the package.json file and installs all those dependencies listed there. inside the node modules directory. So like if I'm pulling down Zainab's code from GitHub, like we normally don't store the actual like node npm modules in GitHub because it's just too much space. So when I first clone that project onto my own machine, I'll run npm install to install those dependencies. And then whenever I have to add a new dependency, I'll run npm install then and add it to the package JSON. Alicia, my guess would be it's because maybe we've been cloning a lot of projects from GitHub, but I'm not sure. And my apologies if that was a bit of over answer.
Oh, it's funny, Justin, I was trying to mess with the .n thing this morning too.
One moment, folks, I have to go off.
Okay, so we don't need this. Let's see. There we go. So I'll open my console log. So this is this is because of our strict mode. Okay. So we got our first render, and then if I hit update, it was updated. If I hit update again, it was updated again. And so that's the only behavior that you see in here. Any other questions? Or I mean, any questions about this? John, did that kind of make sense? This,
Yes, thank
yeah,
you.
awesome. All right, what else? What else do you guys want to see? That's been a little confusing, or okay, so we saw the different use effects. I'm gonna pull down the docs, because if you ever have not questions, but I mean questions or confusion about different hooks. So the React docs, they have pretty good documentation here. So you can build your own hooks. I've never tried that. I've never attempted it, so I can't really speak on it.
It's not terrible. I'll say that it's definitely not stuff we've covered, but it's actually not terrible.
That's good to know. The hooks API reference here, this is where you can access your information. So
Yeah.
you state, oh, sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, I have to look at this all the time when I'm using hooks. I pretty much always have it open in a tab, and I would encourage, especially because the React documentation, like so much documentation, is kind of disorganized. I think this is the place to go because it most accurately describes the behavior of stuff. Yeah, that's it.
Definitely. So use state, use effect. Another one that we didn't really see but might be helpful is use context. So it took me to a different, okay, it didn't actually scroll correctly. That was weird. So use context allows you to give your app a context on a certain level. So if I had, so this is my app.js. So if I wanted to give my entire application context about articles, so if everything, all the inside components are using articles, then I could do my context in here, and everything, all the lower components will know about that. this is useful if you have like one main thing that you want all your components to have, but it becomes a little difficult when you have different pieces of data that you want your application to have, and it becomes a little weird because so this is how you would do it. So you create a context. So you create a context.
And yeah,
And
theme is a good example of when context would be used, which is what they're
yeah,
showing.
definitely. So they have themes. You create a context and it's just sending in themes.light and theme, and they call it theme context. So inside your app, you can access it like this, and you call the theme context provider, which is included with this. It's because this is another hook, it always gives you extra stuff. So this returns a function. You're able to call it like a component. And so theme context.provider will provide everything in here with this value. So with the themes. And then, yeah, so then your actual toolbar has a themed button, and then inside your themed button, they're able to access the theme here. So when they say theme equals use context, theme context. So this is, yeah, this is kind of an idea of how to send down, to have state be provided on a bigger level and be able to access it in the children.
Yeah. And just to add on to that, Zainab, like with themes in particular, like we can imagine if we wanted to give our app a theme and we didn't have this context tool, we might, you know, in the very top level component and the app component, create the theme object. It might be there as state. And then we pass that in as a prop to a child component. And then the theme has to get passed in as a prop to another child component and get passed in like 5 or 6 or 7 layers deep in props. And I think the term that people talk about this with is like prop drilling. And it's a common issue that comes up with React, and context was created to help solve that problem for use cases like with themes. Because now with React context, we can use that context provider component to wrap all our other apps. If you want to scroll up just a bit to where do they have? No, if you scroll back down, I think to just in the example.
Just in here,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, thank you. There it is. I totally missed it. Yeah, basically everything that we've wrapped in that provider component can now call that use context function and access the theme anywhere, and we don't have to pass it around as a prop. And I'm pretty sure that under the hood, React is actually passing the theme as a prop, but is doing all of that work for us. I'm not certain about that, but I think that's the case.
Yeah, I think it might be. I'm not sure either. Yeah, so this is just stuff, like extra stuff that you might want to look into later on. You might be interested in anything. They also have a bunch of additional hooks that might do things that you're looking for. So yeah, I would recommend always looking at the docs for things, because you find solutions to problems that you have, and makes your life easier. But then sometimes if you look at it and it's just too much, and you're like, okay, I'll just do this other way instead of learning all this. So it depends.
Yeah,
Any
and with
questions?
use state and use effect, you can get really far.
Mhm. Agreed. All right. So what else? Everyone now an expert in React? Yeah, no? See some smiles. Okay. So I did see some suggestions of having some study time. Do you guys think you would benefit from that, or would you like to kind of do the code along thing, or like the app, or do you want an option of either or? You guys have to vote because I have to decide on one of them. You have to make your voices heard.
Do you have any thoughts, Zainab, about if people like have sticking points in their code or things that they want to debug,
Mhm.
having them screen share and work through that with them, and then other folks who are interested can kind of watch along as well? I know that
Yeah.
that's something that's been productive in the past.
Yeah, definitely. I would like to do that. We can have like, yeah, we can just have a debugging session, or yeah, just kind of looking at code. Okay, so I'm seeing a lot of mixed things, so maybe we can open breakout rooms if people have stuff that they're working on and they feel like they're pretty set on looking at more examples. And then in here, we could just kind of work on the React News site, talk about issues that are coming up, try to debug things and stuff like that. What do you think, Adam?
I think that sounds great.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure there's stuff that people want to look at and go over, and that other people will find useful.
Mhm.
And then folks can work in breakout rooms, and then when something comes up too, you can pop on in.
Sounds good. Okay, yeah, let's do that. I'm gonna stop recording real quick. I guess we can keep recording for the other one. I'll pause it for now. All right. So before we started the recording, we were going to add our search to our app nav and move it up, because this is currently what our website looks like. I just added this up here. Okay, so I sent in my articles into the app nav. And I'm gonna send it into the search. Okay. So the problem is when I do this and I try to search for something, it gives us this. So it's saying use href. Link component. Where do we have a link? Article teaser. Oh, okay. So it's giving us this behavior because inside my search, I have an article teaser. So it's listing out an article teaser, and this article teaser has a link. And this link is part of the React Router DOM. And the router doesn't like when you put links that are outside the router, because it doesn't know the context. It doesn't have any context. So if I put this in here, let's see what it does. Okay, we have our search. Okay,
Nice.
so that works. So if you were getting that error, Michael, did it fix it for you?
Yeah, that was so simple.
Awesome. Okay, so now we fixed that issue, but there's a bigger issue of this looks very ugly, and we probably don't want it to look like this. So what are some options? What do you guys think could be helpful for this, or a different way of doing this? How can we restructure our page or our search functionality here? Do you guys want to look at the code again?
So for me, on my app nav
Mhm.
page, I encapsulated the nav, like everything in a div, and then I put the search underneath nav bar.
Okay, so let's see what this does. So you're saying put a div up here, right? And then move this all the way down. Oops. Spacing my indentation. Okay. And then put the search down here, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that gives us a search under this.
Do we want to
Um,
have two search bars right now? I just
we do
want
not. Yeah, so the search bar is coming from, I think, the homepage. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna go to the homepage and just delete that for now.
Thank you.
Yeah. So this works. What if we wanted stylistically to have the search up here and then our results down here? What do you guys think that we could change from in our nav bar to do that?
Could you set the state of the articles?
Okay.
Um,
So we would create a new state, right? To
Yeah.
hold our filtered articles, maybe? Um, Okay, so do state. Then I'm just gonna initialize it to an empty list.
Can anyone say why Zainab just initialized that to an empty list? Or an empty array?
so that if you're not searching for anything, it'll be empty.
What
Yeah.
would happen if we put null in there instead of an empty array?
It'll probably throw an error depending on what filtered articles checks for.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think actually I'm reaching my limits of the code.
We could have put null
Yeah.
here, yeah.
Okay, yeah, I think I'd assumed that we're using dot map somewhere and it would break if we weren't passing an array. Yeah, so
Mm.
Dalton, yeah, thank you, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, we will have to use dot map, so you are right, Adam. So if we had null here and it was checking, so it depends on how we're checking for things, but because I know it's gonna be an array eventually, this will make it easier to not break things.
If we've mentioned it, but dot map, if you call dot map on an empty array, it will not do anything. And that's what makes an empty array safe with dot map.
Nice. Okay, so let's say I want to put my search up here because you see that a lot in websites, and sometimes it seems cleaner. So we can keep it up here. But our issue is that the results are rendering inside the search component. So that means that the way that our search component is written doesn't really help us. It doesn't work well. Yeah, Dalton?
I didn't notice I don't understand what's the difference between where you're putting your search bar,
So this is the difference. So you can
but
even
why, I guess.
why what?
Why does it move just from that small change you're making? I don't.
Oh, okay. So it moves because I put it outside of the nav bar.
Oh, so is the
So it's
nav
under
bar,
it.
I'm assuming,
Say it again?
is the nav bar a container or is that just kind of how it works since it's a
Yeah.
component?
Navbar is a component, is a container for your entire navbar, and that's a component that I got or we got from Bootstrap. So it has like certain functionalities and stuff. And adding the search up here just allows you to have a slightly cleaner site unless you wanted a longer search bar, or I mean you can make it shorter also with styling and stuff like that. But yeah.
Cool, thank you.
So, like we said, if we search, kind of annoying to have it up here. So we probably would want to move this, right? Because this is the display. What do you guys think of this if we move it? Yeah, let's do it. So I'm gonna cut this out of here and deal with the consequences in a bit and see what happens. Okay, so results, we don't have anything called results. Up here, we could actually call this results if we wanted to, or filtered articles. I'm gonna call them search results. That way, it's a little more telling.
Nice. Yeah, that's a good rename.
Okay, so instead of results, I'm gonna do search results. Okay, just so it's consistent. So you see here, instead of checking if search results exists, I put search results dot length is greater than 0. So if I had just put search results and I'm asking if this is here, then display this component, search results exists. It's an actual array. And this will still show something, but it won't have anything in the div because you're not mapping anything. You will see this header, but you won't see any actual things here. So doing this will allow you to check if there are any items in there. So if we had set this initially to null instead of this, that would work until our first setting of the array. So when the component first renders, this will work properly because it's a null. But when our search is done, and we don't have anything displaying, we're not actually searching for anything, we don't want to display any items, this will still show based on that. Unless you have logic that resets it to null. But yeah, so two ways of doing it. You can actually do it either way, whichever makes more sense in the moment, I guess.
Yeah, I like the dot length if we have an array. It's nice. With JavaScript, unfortunately, like because variables can be anything, whenever we get a chance to be explicit about the shape of some variable or bit of data, it's nice to do that. So I'm a fan.
Yeah. Okay, so our search results will display. This should work if we have actual search results. Right now they're empty. So we have our set search results method. So what we can do is actually send it into our search and then have our search deal with that. So our search here, we can send a handle search method. And, or actually, that search is handling the actual search.
Yeah, I'm a fan of using the same name a lot of the time to help track just the flow of stuff.
Definitely, because if you keep changing the name every time, you get confused on what the component is using versus what the actual name of the thing is, and yeah, it'll cause a little more confusion that way. At least that's what I think. Okay,
Yeah,
so
I feel solidly.
So I'm gonna import it in my search. So I went back to my search component. I'm doing set search results. And now I have access to this function. Okay, so search title is doing this. Use effect is the one that's setting the results. So instead of holding on to my results here, I already have a results in my app nav. So I don't really need this. I'm going to comment it out for now. And in here, instead of using set results, I'm going to do search results and setting that to my filtered articles. Else, set search results to nothing. So this will allow us to, if I don't have this line here, if you type anything here and then you backspace, it doesn't actually clear out the entire component. It does something different. I don't remember exactly, but it keeps something displaying there, and you don't want that. So we want to clear it out if there is no search title. I guess I could have started with, instead of starting with the negation, to just start saying, if search title is empty, then set results to this, and then else do this. But yeah, so I'm gonna comment this one out and then do search results empty. And here's where I could have set it to null if I wanted to do it the other way. Okay, I think this should work. App nav, when we just check on it. So it's setting the search results, and then I'm using those results to display this. Okay, let's see what happens here. Let's start. Oh, no. Article teaser is not defined. That is something I forgot. Okay, so in my app nav, I need to import article. There we go. Do I need to import anything else? I think that was it. Yeah. Okay. I clear my console update. Okay. So let's look up fees. Awesome. Now it shows our search results down here. Yay.
Nice, that's awesome. Can you type in a search term that's like gonna only
That's what?
give us like one thing? Just like a really long word or something. Like I'll always,
Um,
I'm just curious how good the searching is.
like if I had editing could, so it searches, you can't search two words that are not in succession because it looks
Got
at the
it.
entire string. Yeah. So this is actually could be pretty cool for, oh, sorry.
I also want to apologize. I got search results confused with all articles. So I apologize. That's why
Okay.
I got confused.
Okay, yeah. It is a little confusing. And I was gonna say that we could have the search results show up in a modal if we wanted. Have you guys worked with that at all? Do you know what modals are? Yeah, modal. So this is a modal. It's something that pops up and gives you stuff. I guess the search, having the search results might not be good in modal because
Yeah, I
it'll
was
kind
wondering
of
if you meant like, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I apologize.
no, say
I was wondering if you meant like a autocomplete dropdown.
oh, that would be cool.
Yeah,
That would
that's a
be
more
great.
complex task, but I think
Yeah.
that's why I was wondering if you were going with the mobile.
I wasn't, but that would be nice. I haven't used, let me see.
Yeah, I am not sure if there's one in Bootstrap or if we'd have to build it.
I mean, there's tutorials. So you have your data. Yeah, it's a whole tutorial doing that.
Yeah, it's
I wouldn't
not.
know how to do it just off of the top of my head. Or
Yeah, I think it probably is outside of the scope. If you want to jump back to our application, I can like share a quick high level overview with folks. Or actually, does anyone have an idea of kind of like at a high level, where would we start if we wanted to build like a autocomplete drop down so that as you type, you're seeing that drop down of search results change? Because right now we have it where when we type, the search results change, correct?
Mhm.
Yeah,
because it's yeah, it's changing on.
yeah. So we're like halfway there, um, the main thing really is, I think, like creating a container so that we have a list below the search bar that hides itself completely when there's nothing and then shows itself when there's results and it fills up. But we've done like half the work because we have search results that update dynamically. And if we wanted to do an autocomplete drop down, the task then would really, I think, be more about using the right CSS so that it shows up below the search bar and stuff. So I actually, that was a bit of a digression and I apologize. I just got a little excited
No,
about
I
it.
don't know. Yeah, that would be cool. We could also just, like when we're searching, we could show the search results and hide the articles. Want to see that? We can do that.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
And Dalton, you
Let's-
might be right. We might have had that behavior originally.
For which one?
Oh, Dalton was just asking if, and he might have been right, if we originally had search results appearing below the search bar. And I think we did have that happening when it was like wider.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it would essentially be the same thing, except because it's in the search bar is in this nav bar now, we have to do a bit of extra work with CSS and maybe some other things for the drop down to work and look good. But yeah, I think the idea of like hiding all articles is a great idea, like when we search.
Yeah, let's do that. So I'm thinking of putting a state in the app that would track that, because the app is the one shared component between our app nav and our homepage, because our homepage is the one that's displaying the articles. Do you guys think that's a good idea, or should I go somewhere else?
So what is this state going to track again?
whether we should show the articles or not. So we want to have functionality where if we type in here and we want to show our search results, we can delete or we can hide our all articles, so it's not too confusing. So only our search results will show up.
Cool. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna say, I could call it show all articles. And then let's show, I don't need the all, honestly. Show articles is pretty,
Yeah, I think that sounds great. I think this is awesome.
use state, and I'll initialize it to true because that's our default mode. Okay. So in here, our home page will need access to, what was it? Show articles. So
Yeah, and actually, before we write this code,
Mhm.
How would you feel about, like, does someone want to take a crack maybe at like describing what we need to do to make this feature work? Not getting into like the nitty gritty of like what to write for each line of code, but at like a high level.
anyone can take a stab at it.
Yeah, I'll take a stab at it.
Awesome. Go for it.
So this is going to be rocky, but you know, kick it anyway. So all right, so we're inputting that that prop to homepage, right? And then okay, so and then well, I guess that'll set. Would we use that? Oh, so we would use that prop to within like the homepage, right? To
Also, if you want me to,
where we'll
to go
have
to
to-
the different pages, tell me.
well, I'm looking at homepage on
Okay.
my VS Code. Would we use that to set the state of? Actually, no. I think it'd be the article list component.
I think you're on the right track because we've got this Boolean bit of state, like show articles, and we want to use that to figure out if we should hide or show all the articles. And then we have that function to change the state, excuse me, set show articles. And I hear you kind of working through that, like, all right, somewhere we need to tell our program, you should or you shouldn't show all the articles. And I think I kind of hear you tracing through, figuring out, all right, like, where in our code do we want to decide like when we want to show all the articles or when we don't?
So, okay, I think in homepage then we would set up a div around the all articles and article list component, and then I guess be some sort of conditional statement like if that
Yeah,
what the prop that we what is it yeah the
show articles.
show articles prop, like if true, you know, display all articles in article list, and then if false, don't do that.
Yeah,
Is
exactly.
that, am I kind of closer?
No, that's it. Yeah, I think that's a good solution.
Yeah, I think we should code that now because you pretty much just like navigated us through 50% of the task. So
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Exactly. So, okay, so I'm sending in the show articles into the homepage. I'm saving that. And then in my homepage, I am grabbing that value and I could just do one of the the operators that allow me to,
Ternary, yeah.
yeah, I could either use ternary or something else. But I will use ternary. I like being able to give it another option of what to show. So, because we could have done show articles and this component, and it will just not show an article, not show anything if this component is
Yeah,
not there.
if you don't use a ternary, you'll probably have two return statements. They're both perfectly fine approaches.
Mhm.
And ternary is good to see because it's very common with React code. So it's a good thing to get more familiar with.
Yeah, I agree.
And this is
Um,
exactly the conditional that you were saying, Dan.
I think I have to put it in this, or no, is it?
The curly bracket on line 14 was added by VS Code. And now you should be good and just get rid of the curly brackets on line 15.
15?
Yeah.
So
Oh,
do we
and
need,
I don't think you need the parentheses.
Okay.
I'm not certain about that. You might need a space between the question mark and div on line 10.
no, I don't think that will. I think, no, this might not do anything. Yeah,
There's
I think I
two-
do have to wrap a div around it, maybe.
There's also an extra curly bracket on line 17.
No, this is for the return.
Oh, I apologize.
And then this one is for here. This one is show article. This is for the entire operation.
Yeah, this is
And-
this is the problem with the ternary.
Yeah. So what is our issue here? Must have one parent element. Which, yeah, I think we just have to wrap it with something.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I always forget it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just,
Yep. Yeah, so Dan, you hit the nail on the head. I actually forgot about that. I didn't think we'd have to wrap it in a div.
So React interprets like JavaScript there as another component, I guess.
It will evaluate that JavaScript and it has to evaluate to either like text, which can be displayed inside an HTML element, or some element like we have now, like a React, like these React elements or HTML with the divs and the HRs and stuff, or another component. Did that make sense?
Well, we have to add the other div, right? Because otherwise it's saying, it can only render one element. So it must be, must see it as like another element in there. I don't know.
Oh, I might have misunderstood. I was thinking about between the curly brackets. You're right that what we return has to be an element. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry
yeah.
about that.
So I think it's seeing the curly braces and being like, hey, you have to return a component or an element because it doesn't know that this will for sure evaluate to an
Okay.
element. That's what I'm
Yeah.
guessing.
So it has to return something. Has to return a div, whether there's anything inside that. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. All right.
A div
Clarified
or like Adam was saying, a string.
Okay.
Okay, so this should show our articles or hide it, and we can test that out real quick. I'm gonna go back to my app and just set this to false and see if that works.
Nice. Yeah, that's a great way to test. Like, so we built like half the feature and now we can make sure that it works.
Yeah, and now it's hidden, so that's great.
Can you change it to true and can we confirm that it also shows up when we expect?
Mhm.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a
There we
habit
go.
I've learned because I've definitely made errors where it turned out the happy path wasn't working the right way. Cool. Thank you,
That
Xana.
happens. Of course. So what else do we have to do now? We have our conditional set up, but we're not really changing it anywhere. So where do we have to call this? Where do we have to set our conditional?
Oh.
So that,
Sorry.
Yeah, go for it, Dan.
Mike, if you want,
Take
well,
it.
I was gonna say that's gonna have to be set where. So. Can we do it in the same use effect as set search results? Like if search results, like if, you know, if that array isn't empty, then that Boolean value is going to have to be set to false then.
Yeah, we can definitely do it in here. We can do it with our, like, inside of our search. We could also, so the way these are nested, we have our app, and then we have our app nav, and then inside our app nav we have our search, and then the display of the search. So if we wanted, we can add to this conditional also and just search here, or do the conditional of. Oh,
Do
but
you-
we're triggering, sorry, never
Yeah.
mind.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I get what you're saying, because we could also hide the search if
Mhm.
we wanted to. But yeah, I don't think we'd want to do.
Oh,
the-
I didn't want to hide the search, but I was gonna say we can put that logic in here instead of having it, having to send it through two components. We can just send it through the app nav and then have the app nav based on the articles that, or sorry, based on the search results, do that. So we can have a use effect that just changes that.
I actually, I think I had assumed the same thing as Dan, that we would pass it down to the same point in the code where we set the search results. We also decide if we should display the article or not. But I just may not be familiar enough with the architecture. Could you walk through again, Zainab, what you were thinking of with doing it here?
Sure. So in our homepage, whenever, not in our homepage, sorry. So our app nav has access to our search results. So the search results are set by our search, because that handles the functionality of filtering our articles. And then our search results are displayed on this page. Or in this component. So I was thinking that we have a use effect. And this use effect will be triggered by our search results. So whenever our search results change, we will effectively change our, what is it called? Change the show, what was it called?
The
Our show
articles.
article. Yeah. So we can
So-
set it based on that.
So this is getting into the weeds a little bit in terms of, or rather not the weeds, but like this is more of a conversation that we would have, I think, like in a real working environment. I do have a preference for which way we implement this, and my preference is to do it with the use effect we already have. And the reason for that is because it means that all the logic around that stuff that we need to look at is in one place. And for me, I think that simplifies life, and the trade-off of having to pass the prop an extra level is worth it. Because I think creating a new use effect, it can then be more challenging, because now to like accurately kind of understand how all the pieces of the code interact, we have to look at two different places.
Okay,
I also may be misunderstanding part of the application architecture and behavior. So I just want to check in and see if that makes sense and what your thoughts are too, because you know this code way better than I do.
No, I mean, that works. I think it what I'm seeing is it comes down to like how you want to implement, like they'll do the same thing. I was thinking of keeping things in the level where they need to be, or like not having to send it in an extra level just to do the same thing that I couldn't do one level up. But that might be a personal preference, and I mean, it works either way.
For sure. Yeah, I feel you. And definitely like not passing tons of props way down is a plus too, because that adds up and can add to a lot of complexity.
Yeah, because keeping track of all of that is just a lot of extra stuff. And the way I'm thinking about it is show articles is directly dependent on the search results. And we only have access to our search results as a state in here. Because in here, we're just setting the search results. We don't actually, I know we have access to the underlying logic of the search title, but logic-wise, I think the search results as a state is inside of this, so I can check based on that. But yeah, I think both of them would work.
I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying about search results and state. Yeah, I might implement it the other way, but that makes a lot of sense. And that explanation helps a lot. Thank you. And the nice thing is that's actually pretty easy to write, and then we can see it.
We can show both of them, yeah.
Yeah, the other thing, to not to go too far afield, but one thought that came to mind when we were speccing out this feature is we could move the search results and set search results state up to the top level and pass that down. And then we're passing more props. But like right now, this show articles variable, it's totally derived independent on search results. And really all all it is search results.length. However, the other disadvantage to doing that is it's a lot more work. And certainly as a first pass on this feature, this is nice because we don't have to modify any of the existing code that we have that's already working great. But I just wanted to mention that because I think that's part of this next level conversation too. And just for the class, like Zainab, I appreciate you talking about this with me, and this is a great conversation to have. And it's good to start thinking about this stuff, and it's stuff that you'll definitely be talking about and getting feedback all the time on at work. In terms of like working on projects right now, definitely like the easiest path forward to get something working is the best path. And there's not like one right answer either, as you can tell, because it's not like it's not like it's almost a matter of taste as much as anything to a degree.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. But yeah, okay. So in my app, I sent the set show articles to my app nav. So let's grab it from here. I'll just show both ways, honestly. It's not a big deal.
Yeah,
If
I
I
mean, I think
do-
talking through it was great. This is
Yeah.
great. It is nice because it also means this use effect is very like self-contained and specific.
I agree.
Yeah, part of it may just be it's a style that I'm less familiar with.
Okay, so our use effect, what is it going to be based off of? So we have access to our search results, and we have access to our show articles and our articles. What should we add in here? I'll start calling on people. Anyone? No?
It should be set search, right?
Which one? The search
Or-
results?
Yeah,
Or-
search results.
Yeah, because the set is a function, and this
Yeah.
one would have that. Yeah, it would have access to this. So whenever my search results change, this will get called.
Right.
And okay, so what am I doing here inside of it? So when my search results change,
And for anyone who may be wondering, a great technique is just to describe, like in plain language, what do we want to have happen?
Mhm.
Do we want what happens when there are no search results? What happens when there's one search results? What happens when there's 1,000 search results? Like look at kind of like those are, it's really only two cases that we care about, no search results or some search results.
So
What
right
do we-
now, oh,
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say, right now, our app nav is handling search and then setting our search results to something. Let's actually do the first way of doing it. So we send our set show articles, right? That's what it was called.
Yeah.
So let's just send that into our search. Okay. So now our search has access to it. And inside of our search, Dan, you were saying inside of our use effect, right? When we have this. So-
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, so you were saying that we would send in our set show articles into our search, right? And then in the use effect, we would handle it in these two, right? We would set the show articles based off of what we have.
Yeah.
So for that if clause on line 19, do we have search results when we get
Yes.
into that if clause? Dan,
So it would be, yes, we would.
and what do we want to do when we have search results?
Oh, you want to set show articles to false.
Yeah, exactly. You got it, man. I know that sometimes just keeping track of what all the parts of the code do can be a challenge. A lot of the time I'll add a comment above my if clauses saying like, have search results, for example, or whatever. And that's really a matter of taste. Like some people find the comments distracting, some people find them helpful. But that's why I wanted to ask that clarifying question, because I kind of knew you had it, man.
So aren't we kind of doing this in a component that's a little bit farther down the state?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, so this one is actually, this doesn't see if there is a search result. This checks if there is something typed in here. So if I type something
Right.
and there's no search results, there is, what is it called? This one is still, so this is not has search results. This has
Well-
something written.
But we set filtered articles on line 22. I think line 22 threw me because I saw set search results and I thought this must be the part of the code where we set when we have search results.
So this sets search results to whatever was filtered, but sometimes this comes back empty because we didn't find what was there.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
I apologize for that confusion.
No,
I-
that was part of why I wanted it to be one level up, because here we're checking for the actual search title versus checking if the list is empty or not.
No, that makes sense. And to be honest, that was right in the code too. I just wasn't seeing it and I lost track. Yeah. Yeah.
So should we move it up a level? Do you guys think that would be better?
Well, can you pass that state? Can you pass it like up a level if it's residing in search? Because
So it actually was handed in from the top level already. So we had app, and this set show articles went into the app nav, and then it was sent into our search. So we got it up here, and then we sent it into our
oh, never
search.
mind that. Okay.
Yeah, so we can just take out this reference and then just keep it in the app nav. Do we want to do that?
And I apologize if I caused confusion. Sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt.
So can we update it in search even though that state resides in app?
Yeah, so we did send it in. We sent it into the search, so we can update it here, but we will
Okay.
have to do
Yeah.
a little bit more logic. I mean, it'll be the same amount of logic kind of in the other one, but
Yeah. So I don't see a reason to move it up one level.
okay. I mean, we're
Maybe
not moving it up, we're
this one
just
also.
not moving it. So yeah, so it is already up here. So this is it starts in app, and then it goes into app nav, and then it goes into search. So we technically sent it down 2 levels. So by not having it down, we're not sending it up, we're just not sending it down 1 extra level. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
I think I'm just talking about terminology here. Yeah. We're talking about the same thing, but yeah, sorry. Continue. I think you're muted.
Oh,
Yeah.
we have to set show articles to false.
Okay. And in what case is this? So here we just said that it'll go in here if we have something written in the search bar. And then we're gonna set our search results, but our filtered articles might be empty. So we only want to set this to false if we have something in here, right? I'm guessing.
Yeah, that's a
So-
good idea.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess it would be if filter articles
Mhm.
not empty array.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think,
Yep, and we would do that
does
with
it have a dot empty? No, it doesn't. That's Java.
yeah, with JavaScript, we just do dot length.
Yeah, dot length.
Yeah, I would just do dot length just greater than 0.
Yeah, not equals. Oh, greater than 0. Yeah.
Yeah. That's going to be the easiest and most explicit way to do it in JavaScript.
There we go. And then, yeah, so if we have articles, then we want to set this to false. Okay. So what about if it is empty? So if we have articles, we want to not show all of the other articles, and we want to show our current articles that we found. But if this comes back empty, if this filtered articles are empty, then we probably want to still show the articles, which
Right. Yeah.
this shouldn't do anything. Yeah. So we would probably, what do we want to do here, actually?
Do we need an else clause? I
think
think
that
we
would be,
do.
I think that would be beneficial, yeah.
Yeah, we'll need an else clause.
Let's show articles to true. And then the other case that we have to set articles to true is going to be in the case that there's also nothing written in the search bar. So we can do that.
Yeah, set show articles to true.
Okay,
I
all
have
of
a
our logics.
question.
Uh-huh.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Zainab.
No, I keep going, yeah.
Is filtered articles always going to be an array, but just an empty array?
Yeah,
Okay, I just wanted to double check, because if the other way to do line 23 with that if statement is just check filtered articles dot length. Because if filtered articles was ever like null, the way we do it might, I'm not sure if it would throw an error or not.
yeah,
We're good.
yeah, because the filter should send in
Oh, you're
an empty array if
You're totally
that's-
right. I forgot about that. Thank you. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's just JavaScript being annoying.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so let's test it out, see if it works. We have this. If we search something. So, okay, let's actually start with, I'm gonna search over. So we do have one,
All over the
and
place.
awesome, the rest of our articles disappeared. What if I add something to it that doesn't make sense? So that, then our search articles disappear, but all of the rest of our articles show up, which is great. That's exactly what we want to see. And if we then delete everything, same thing, all of our articles show up again because we're not searching for anything. That's great. Thank you, Dan.
Yeah, Dan, that was awesome. Thank you.
Could you go back to the code we were just working on though? I'm having trouble. So the else statement that I didn't want to throw in there, but you wanted to,
This one?
like, yeah, shouldn't the code work without that anyway?
Let's see what happens here.
Right? Because
Yeah. So
isn't
if
all
I s-
articles set to true anyway?
yeah, so if I do over and then I start
Uh-huh.
deleting. Oh, okay, so it does actually do that.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, that works. I don't know why I was thinking that there was a case where. Oh, this case. So if there is something in the search bar, but there's no search results. This case should
Okay.
still show all of the articles.
Okay, could you go back to the code then?
Uh-huh.
All right. Something.
Just so it's a little
Okay.
clearer.
Yeah, this is where building user interfaces get tricky too. There's all sorts of edge cases like this.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
Yeah, do you want to maybe just explain for the rest of the class what the case is that we're handling with the else statement?
Oh, the case that there are no search results, but so you've
yeah.
entered characters into the search bar, right? But there are no results, so you still want to show articles instead of, you know, just a blank page.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's an awesome description. Thank you. Yeah, awesome job, Dan. And again, sorry for the confusion, Zainab. And
No,
yeah,
it's fine.
like cases like this, when building user interfaces are part of the process, and why people who do lots of front-end engineering end up being good at like user experience and design to a degree, because you have to figure all this out. So, and it's good to learn. It's definitely tricky stuff too. So it's not trivial by any means.
Yeah. Anyone has questions or comments? Anything they want to see? We only have 10 minutes before lunch. Yeah.
Do you want to refactor this to the other approach?
Yeah, let's try that. So if we wanted to do it the other way, in our app nav here, I would add a use effect. And this will be tracked by search results. So every time our search results change, we will get this use effect called. And my logic would be if
I think you might need
So-
an array on line 18.
What is it? Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Yep.
There we go. So my logic would be if we have search results, so search results dot length is greater than 0. Then we want to set show articles to false, or sorry, yes, to false. And else we can set show articles to true. And that would be it. That's all I can think of right here.
Yeah. Do you want to
Remove
comment
it.
out?
Yeah,
Yeah, let's see. And actually that is, I totally see why you wanted to do it that way. I think you might be right that that's the easier to read and like the approach that separates our logic in a more readable and maintainable fashion.
yeah, because this and this use effect ended up doing two completely different things. We're searching, so we're filtering articles and setting the search results, but also we're checking the search results and showing the articles, and it could have been done at a higher level.
Yeah.
So yeah, this code, I commented out all the other stuff, so this in theory should still work. So if I look up tips, we got that. If I make it incoherent, we're back to having all articles up here. And if I delete everything, yeah, it goes back to the articles.
Yeah, I like how you did it. Thank you for being patient and implementing it the other way too.
No, of course, that's kind of how we have to do it. You have to try out the different approaches and see which one works better, which one can like lessen the amount of code that you have in different places and stuff like that.
Totally,
but yeah.
totally. Yeah, and for the class, like the conversation that Zainab and I were having is a really good example of like conversations that you'll have all the time on the job. And a big part of why like communication skills and being able to talk about stuff is a big part of what people are looking for in the interview process. Like they're looking for someone who can talk about code with other people and come to a conclusion, and also isn't going to like who has opinions but isn't going to try to really fight to the end to get it their way, if that makes sense, because it's always a balancing act.
Yeah, and a lot of times you have to try both things to kind of see the benefit of the one that would probably work better or not.
Totally.
I'm just gonna refactor or like delete the unneeded references,
Yeah,
since
go
we
for
have
it.
this in the recording.
Yeah, and I've had plenty of times where like with Zainab, I thought I was like totally convinced, oh, this way makes more sense. And my manager was like, no, do it that way. And then once I did it, I was like, okay, now I get it. And then there are other times where your manager or team lead might want you to do it one way, and maybe that's not the best way, but you know, you got to do it that way. Because that's the team lead, or because that's the way it's done in the rest of the code base, and having something be consistent and bad is a lot better than having like 10 different ways of doing things in a code base. And in interviews, being able to talk about like why you chose one approach to do something and like others that you may not have thought about is a really positive sign, I think, to be able to talk about that with interviewers if you get a chance to do that in the interview process.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that's all I had for this. I don't think we have time to show any more functionality. But does anyone have questions or things that might have come up? No. Okay, I'm gonna stop the recording.